Well, hey there, Mama, and welcome back to the Moms Overcoming Overwhelm podcast, episode number 171. I'm Emily McDermott, and I'm here beside you on this journey as we work together to declutter your home, head, and heart. Really excited to bring you my conversation with Shira Gill today. She is a globally recognized home organizing expert and best-selling author with a minimalist philosophy. And she's inspired thousands of people to clear clutter from their homes and lives, and also developed a process and toolkit that applies to anyone, regardless of budget, space, or lifestyle. So she is the author of Minimalista, which I read a couple years ago, in addition to Organized Living, and her latest is Lifestyled, which is what we talk about today. And she's been featured in 100 plus print and media outlets, including Good Morning America, Architectural Digest, Vogue, Real Simple, and the New York Times. And I'm going to link to her popular newsletter, which has subscribers from all 50 states and 140 countries. Today on the show, we're talking about some of my favorite parts of the book, specifically about how we can adjust volume, not only physical stuff, but also perfectionism, comparison, and other voices telling us that we're not enough, how we can lower the bar to better live within our capacity, and then also how we can redefine enough and how the definition of enough has changed for Shira over the years. So I know that you are going to love this chat. So what do you say? Grab that notebook and pen and let's dive into today's conversation with Shira Gill. Hey there, Mama. Are you tired of all the stuff crowding your home, calendar, and mind? Do you wish you could say goodbye to the endless to-do list running around in your head? Want to declutter but don't know where to start? You're in the right place. Welcome to Moms Overcoming Overwhelm, where you will find proven and practical solutions to declutter your home, head, and heart. Hi, I'm Emily, a wife, boy mom, and simplicity seeker. I struggled to get pregnant and felt overwhelmed until I discovered decluttering could create the physical and emotional space I needed to become a mom. Now, 2 kids later, I've transformed my life and motherhood by developing simple systems around decluttering, capsule wardrobes, kid stuff, cleaning and tidying, meal planning, time management, and more, and I can't wait to share them with you. If you're ready to reclaim the time and energy you crave, be present with your kids, and finally enjoy the life and motherhood you so deserve, let's kick overwhelm to the curb, shall we? Grab your lukewarm coffee, your notebook and pen, and clear off some counter space. Let's do this. Well, hi, Shira. Thank you so much for coming on the Moms Overcoming Overwhelm podcast. I am excited to talk to you today.
Oh, I'm so excited to talk to you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I'm kind of a dork for a lot of reasons, but I've been on this minimalism path for a decade now, and I try to read books kind of in the genre so that I can help not only myself, but other moms. And I read Minimalista a couple years ago. I have not read your second book, Organized Living, but I think I
Yeah.
will because I just geek out on all things organization. But I really enjoyed your latest book, Lifestyled, and I love that it takes more of that holistic and intentional approach to all areas of our life and not just sort of the home management piece. So I can't wait to dive in. But before we do, I would love it if you could just introduce yourself and tell us about you and your family, how you serve women, and maybe one thing you like to do for fun.
Okay, fun. Yes. So I'm Shira. I am a mom of 2. I have 2 teenage daughters. We live in the Bay Area with my husband, 2 daughters, and dog in a very small, minimal home that has 2 closets and no basement or garage or attic. So I am walking the walk in that capacity. Um, I guess I started as a home organizer, but now I kind of think of myself more as a life editor. So I help people cut clutter in all areas of their life, even their business. So I do business mentoring, all around kind of simplicity and minimalism. And for fun, travel is really my greatest love. So, and it's part of why I became a minimalist, to make it as easy as possible to travel. So I have a brother who's a chef and also loves travel and food. So when I'm not writing or momming or working, I can be found traveling and eating around the world with my brother.
Ooh, Oh, and your brother, he is a younger brother, right? I
Much
remember at that
younger.
point. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We grew up,
Yeah.
we were 14 years apart.
Wow. Oh, that is so cool that you guys can connect in that way. Are you
Yeah.
traveling for the holidays or are you staying local?
So we're just road tripping for the holidays just because it gets so crazy with
Mm.
everyone and their mother traveling during the holidays. So we live in California in the Bay Area. We love to take road trips all over California. So we'll be doing some Southern California, LA and Santa Barbara, and then we're also going to go to Nevada City and near Tahoe. But my big goal is next year to go to Thailand.
Mhm.
So that's in the works.
Oh, I love that. And I
Yeah.
love just, in talking about your book and obviously your first two books kind of being more about the editing and elevating, which I love that concept. And I've talked about that a little bit, giving credit to you, of course, on the show before.
Oh, thanks.
But that this is kind of dealing with all the different domains of our life. So you talk about health and wellness, home and environment, relationships and community, career and finance, personal development, just kind of, and through all of those areas, looking at these three main tools that we can have in our toolkit: adjusting volume, creating systems, and implementing habits. And I call myself a certified habits geek. I mean, I love
I
all
love
things
that.
habits, read all the
Uh-huh.
books. But what I love about adjusting volume, so being on this path, you and I for a long time, we know that adjusting volume, most people think stuff. Like, okay, I
Mhm.
gotta get rid of the excess stuff. A lot easier to organize if you have less volume of actual physical stuff. But what I loved in the book is you also talked about adjusting the volume, kind of like a volume knob that you're turning down. And, as far as like other people's opinions,
Mm.
the shoulds, the comparison, like being able to just be intentional based upon our values rather than comparing ourselves in every area, parenting, career, our home. And I'm just curious in your own journey how you were able to adjust the volume when it comes to, I don't know if you ever struggled with perfectionism or comparison or
Oh yeah.
able to tune out other voices. It just would be helpful because we talk about that a lot here on the show. One way to overcome overwhelm is to recognize whether you're causing your own chaos based upon this comparison of perfectionism. So, can you talk a little bit about how you've been able to adjust that volume in your own life?
Sure. Yeah. So it's interesting because I spent over a decade helping people edit and organize their stuff before I kind of had this epiphany around applying the same process to my and other people's lives. And it kind of snuck up on me because, I'm this expert in organization and minimalism, but I found that I was drowning in other areas of my life. And which kind of led to some imposter syndrome of like, I am an organizing and a minimalism expert who's overwhelmed.
Mhm.
So that doesn't totally add up. And I remember my husband said to me, like, well, why don't you maybe apply what you teach to your life?
Yeah.
And so I had this light bulb moment, and because minimalism really has helped me profoundly. And but I hadn't applied minimalism to things like you mentioned, like my belief systems, my friendships, my social plans. And so when my editor asked me after the huge success of Minimalista, which was all about the home, she said, "What's next for you?" And I was like, well, I don't know. I guess I could apply this to life. And
Yeah.
she loved that idea. And so it became kind of this personal experiment where, unlike Minimalista, where I was writing about what I knew and what I was an expert in, this time it was like I was just in the same boat as the reader. Like,
Yeah.
I'm overwhelmed. I'm feeling all of the same things you're feeling. And so I started, I think the first step was really just increasing my awareness
Mhm.
of all of it. So, with regard to, my belief system, it was looking at what do I believe about my life, about my family, about the world at large, about my capacity to earn money, right? Like, really looking at it. And just the way if you're editing a closet, you have to take everything out and kind of look at it before you do the work of editing. So I think for me, it was just noticing. And I think the hardest part is when you notice beliefs that you don't like. you can really go down the path of just beating yourself up. Like, well, I don't like that I have imposter syndrome, or I don't like that, I'm judging myself this harshly. But I really did my best to be like, well, let me just look at it and kind of take note. And then from there, you can start to address small or big changes. So with regard to, things like imposter syndrome or compare or despair, um, I started using that as kind of a compass. And so saying like envy can actually be an incredible tool. Instead of just making you feel bad about yourself, you can say, what is the thing I want here that feels painful? And sometimes for me, like if I would see another person in my space who was hugely successful and I would feel kind of the sting of feeling behind, I would actually look and be like, well, what is it that they have that I want? And I would realize nothing. They're on a totally different path. And like, I don't want to be, a brand influencer or a TikTok influencer. So I don't know. It was a great way to kind of go like, oh, okay. Like if you just take a beat and ask yourself, what's the real thing here? Am I jealous that they're getting attention? Am I jealous that they're in a magazine? Or am I just kind of unnecessarily comparing myself and I don't actually want to be on that path? So that
Mhm.
was really useful for me.
Yeah, I think the pause is so important. And I was just thinking about like holiday activities. So my boys are 6 and 8. So they're still wanting to do some of these more, I don't know, kiddie kind of things.
Mhm.
But sometimes I can look at what everyone else is doing and be like, oh, well, there's this lights display, and then there's the like breakfast with Santa, and then there's this. And I have to just stop and be like, what's the goal here? Like, what are we trying to do? And it's
Right.
really for them to have some experiences making some of those holiday memories, but not that I'm crabby because we're rushing from one thing to the next. So
Right.
the pause has been really important because I find in the holiday season, I can get wrapped up in comparison with what everyone else is doing from an activity standpoint. Not
Mhm.
so much decor, not so much kind of gift exchange, but just like, oh, I want to make sure that I'm helping my kids make memories, and
Mhm.
that's where I get sort of hung up. But that pause, just that moment, like, and you said the question, like, what's the purpose? Like, why am I actually doing that? Intentionality behind it is so important.
Exactly. And I mean with the holidays, I have the same thing of like, the FOMO if it's like
Hmm.
feels like everybody's out and decking the halls without
Yeah.
me. But I think like one thing I've started doing, my kids are a little older now. My girls are 13 and 15, but many years ago we started just having like a little family meeting around the holidays because it's the only time they get a significant amount of time off. And
Mhm.
I would just say, like, what does everybody want? Like, let's create kind of a like intention around the holidays, and everybody would just say one thing they wanted. And sometimes it was so sweet, like it would, my daughter would be like, I just want to have a sleepover where my friends can come over, or I want to go to the movies with these three people. And then you can kind of take note of it. And usually it's not like I want to be out every single night at a party. Like
Mhm.
most people don't actually want that. So I think again, it's like just by pausing and kind of asking, like, what's the real want here?
Yeah.
What's the real need? And then if you make a decision around that and plan around that, it makes it much easier to dismiss what everybody else is doing.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the other aspects about comparison that you wrote about, I was reading this book over Thanksgiving, and I think that my in-laws heard me audibly be like, ah, because I was reading about this section about lowering the bar. And I'm like,
Mhm.
yes, I always say like I'm playing a game of limbo in my life. And I'm like, how low can we go? Where, it's something where the things that matter, then yes, go ahead. Like, let's put the energy in. And I love you've mentioned before about like, where do we invest our resources and time? Where do we divest? Like, where do we kind of or divert, those resources? But you write that lowering the bar on purpose as opposed to dropping the ball by accident can feel both liberating and empowering. And I feel like a lot of our listeners, they feel like they're constantly dropping the ball or putting out fires. And so the lowering the bar concept is so freeing. Like I'll just give one example in my own life, which is meals, where I used to think like, oh, well, I need to be so creative and I need to all these do these different meals all the time. And then I ask my kids and they're like, oh, we can have oatmeal. That's fine. I'm like, why am I
Yes.
killing
Yes.
myself when they're
Right.
perfectly happy and excited about eating oatmeal? So that's one area where I have unapologetically lowered the bar because my family is happy and I don't have to put my energy there. So
Yep.
I would love it if you could give some examples in your own life about how you freed up your time and energy and those resources by lowering the bar.
Yeah. I mean, there are so many things I've decided to just not be good at on purpose.
Yeah.
And it's like my new hobby is deciding to not be good at things. So, I mean, one of them is, I'm terrible at keeping plants alive, and we bought our first home. I think it's been about 13 years now, and I used to want to be one of those people with like the plants everywhere, and they just all died. And so I we have no plants now. I buy fresh flowers every week. It makes me super happy. But that's something I just was like, you know what? This isn't a thing I'm naturally good at. I don't have the bandwidth to figure it out. Likewise, meals and meal planning, just really not something that I thrive at. And I think it's so easy for women in particular to beat themselves up and feel like, you're not a good mom unless you're putting like the beautiful, perfectly balanced meal on the table, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But very few of us have the capacity to actually do that. So um, I am fully embracing like breakfast for dinner, pizza, takeout. Like, I want my kids to eat a healthy meal. Like, I try to get one vegetable on the table,
Yeah.
but sometimes it's like snacky supper, like which the kids love. And it's like a baguette and some cheese and some salami and like some hummus, and everybody loves it. So um I've also lowered the bar on figuring out anything having to do with technology. So I mean, here we are recording this podcast. I can handle that, but that's about all I can handle. And I think I used to feel terrible about not, being able to kind of seamlessly navigate technology. I'm a business owner. I now it's something I happily delegate, pay
Yeah.
for. And I'm always kind of looking for those things like, what is something I'm not that good at that I just don't have any interest or
Mhm.
curiosity in? There are certainly things I'm not good at that I want to get better at. But I think this idea of lowering the bar, I mean, people are always surprised that like my kids don't fold their laundry in like cute little packages, like they just shove. And I'm fine with that,
Yeah.
So I think it's like, I'm a professional organizer, I'm in the public eye. And yet I reached a point where I was like, I'm not going to crack the whip on everybody having their clothes like Marie Kondo
Yeah.
in perfect packages, because it's for our family not realistic or sustainable. So if my kids are doing their own laundry, I don't care how they put it away.
Mhm.
So lots of things like that where it's just like looking at, is this something that really matters to me? And if it doesn't, I'm going to let it go and I'm going to own it proudly or
Yeah.
with a sense of humor.
Yeah. Yes. And I noticed in the book, and you mentioned at the beginning of the conversation how you were kind of applying this to your life and being very upfront that you're not an expert in all of these areas and kind of owning that and be like, hey, this is something I'm working on. Hey, this is something that I struggle with. And I think that's really helpful because we people can look at the pictures. If people just looked at the
Mhm.
photos in your book because they're gorgeous, just for everyone to know, then it
Yeah.
would be like, oh, well, here's Shira and her friends, and they have everything together and everything's seamless and beautiful and whatever. And that's sometimes what we think like our lives have to look like. And if you, I know for you about, elevating and kind of having those areas in your life that have that beauty, like the fresh flowers, for
Mhm.
example, we can still have beauty and elevate certain things, but then be like, yeah, but this doesn't matter as much. And that's okay. I think that that's okay part is where we struggle
Mhm.
because that's where the
Yes.
guilt comes in. It's like, no,
Yes.
but wait, I'm supposed to be this, I'm supposed to be that. So, how were you able, I guess, to kind of proudly own that rather? And for me, it's
Yeah.
For me, it's getting older. It's like the
Yes,
older I get, I'm
helps.
44, and I'm just like, I just don't care anymore, you know?
Yes.
But for you, how were you able to kind of let go and just not like be like, not today, mom guilt, like that's gone.
Yeah, I do think it's getting older. Hell, I'm 47 and I find with every year I just care less about expectations and societal norms and other people's expectations. But I think it's having like a very compelling yes makes it easy to say no, right? So I've been really clear, like my priorities are I want to be a good mom and show up for my kids emotionally. I want to be a great author and help people with my books. I want to be a good friend and I want to be a good wife. But there's so many other things that I've just said, I don't care about these things because they're not like my main 3 to 5. And so that has really helped, like having a compelling yes. Like these are the big yeses in my life that I've defined that I'm going all in on. And because I feel so aligned with those things, like I want to help people clear clutter from their homes and lives, and I want to be a good mom and be a good friend and good
Yeah.
wife. Like that's really all I can handle. And like, try to work out and get good sleep. Like that's a lot.
Yeah.
But I can let go of having like our dog right now is like barking her face off. She's terribly trained. We gave up on having a dog who behaves herself. She sleeps on the furniture. She jumps into bed with us. Like our house is 120 years old. There's scratches all over everything and it's fine. So I think like having the things that I feel really anchored in is the answer to your
Yeah.
question. And I think for anyone struggling with that, it's like start with what is most important to you right now in this season of your life. Like, where do you want to invest your energy and your intention? Who are the people that you care about most that you want to give like the best you to? And then I think once those feel really locked in, I don't know, the rest is kind of gravy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I think also, I because I'm a minimalist, which in this society of like more, more, more culture, I have people all the time kind of being very perplexed by me and my choices. And I think initially it was sort of like, maybe 10 or 15 years ago when I was younger, it felt like kind of unnerving. And now I really truthfully don't care because minimalism has made my life so much better that it's like people can think whatever they want about it. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I have experienced that as well. Just like, and just coming up on the holidays here and like the buying gift cards so that other people can buy you gift cards and just sort, it's just kind of
Right.
like, what is this? Like, what is the purpose of this? Like, why are we doing this? And so I decided with my, pretty much the ladies that I'm coming back to Pittsburgh to see, I'm going to take them out for tea. So kind of
Hmm.
like a special thing,
Sweet.
So instead of like physically like, getting them stuff on Amazon or whatever, then this is on brand for me. They know. They're like, "Oh, okay, Emily's doing an experience. Like this is a normal thing." And most people in my life have understood or tried to embrace it, but just not having to explain ourselves or to like
Right.
apologize and I want to kind of shift. I originally was going to ask you about some systems that you mentioned, but I'm going to let people look in the book for the systems because I really want to
Okay.
ask you this other
A
question.
teaser, yes.
I know. Yeah. So first of all, because you are such a expert in the home management side of things, there were a lot of these systems. I was like, oh yeah, that's super helpful. But I kind of want to talk about this other aspect about the intentionality and the recalibrating enough and what that has looked like for you. Because
Mm.
I think, especially in this holiday season, we're bombarded with everyone saying more, and I have to really check the mail very religiously when my kid's school bus comes and then hide it if there's like the Target catalog or because I'm
Yeah.
kind of like, or the Amazon catalogs, I'm like, no, like they're not going to see this, they're not going to know. And I feel like for me over the last 10 years, my recalibration of enough and what I've been able to define that has shifted so much. And that the less that I've acquired, I call it the cycle of minimalism. The less that I've acquired, the less that I've required, and the less that I've desired. And then I just am kind of not wanting to pursue kind of the keeping up with the Joneses and the, checking out what the latest trends are and caring what the Instagram influencers say, and
Right.
just being able to feel like I have enough and I'm doing enough and I am enough. And I'm curious for you, what has that looked like? Have you ever struggled with the scarcity mindset of not feeling like you have enough or doing enough or are enough? And what shifted so that you could have more of this abundance mindset where you can live with that less, but then also have that, spirit of generosity, if you
Yeah. Yeah, so a few things. So, I was raised by parents who were kind of hippie intellectuals who had a very anti-materialistic mindset and value system, which is I recognize very unique, right? So my parents raised me to kind of think that like consumerism was a sham and a
will.
scam.
Yeah.
And almost to the point where like I had to rebel against them because I still liked pretty things and fashion and interiors. And they were really extreme with like not acquiring things and valuing experiences over things. And, gifting was not a big deal in our family. There were fancy cars were not a thing. So I think for me, what's interesting is I had to kind of define my own minimalism and my own sense of enough because my parents were really not interested in the things I was interested in. And I am so interested in aesthetics and beauty and style that I kind of was worried they would think that I was vapid or superficial. And so I kind of went on my own journey to figure out like, what does enough look like for me? And how can I find the equilibrium between, not wanting to invest heavily in consumerism, but still being able to appreciate and enjoy things. And I think what helped me a lot was my travel to other cities and other countries and seeing that the happiest, most fulfilled people that I've ever met didn't have a lot of stuff and frankly didn't spend any time shopping recreationally. Like, so I've spent time living in Europe. I've spent time in Mexico. I've my second book, I traveled all around the world interviewing people about their homes and their spaces. And I think my biggest takeaway was really, what we all know intellectually is that the thing that really leads to a fulfilling, happy life is meaningful relationships, purposeful work, something bigger than ourselves to contribute to.
Mhm.
And I think seeing that again and again and again kind of drilled in for me that like, that thing, I think there's a book called like Regrets of the Dying
Mhm, mhm.
that it's so interesting, right? Like it's never like I didn't have enough stuff or like I didn't go to the mall enough. It's like I wish I had said the thing to the person. I
Yeah.
wish I had actually done that creative pursuit that I held myself back on. And so I think those lessons have inspired me to live my life to the fullest in terms of traveling, being creative, trying to give as much as I can. And that's been so satisfying to me that the stuff has just lost the value, which is not to say that, I'm not guilty of like buying a purse I don't need or, buying the thing just because it was on sale.
Mhm.
I certainly have all the same, messages coming at me. And I think it's just in terms of cultivating a more abundant mindset, I think I've really shifted my focus from material things and aesthetics and like what's everyone wearing, what's everyone doing, to what are the things that are going to feel the most deeply fulfilling.
Yeah.
And those things in my life are being creative, being in meaningful relationships, and finding ways to give back with the things that I'm naturally good at, to help as many people as I can. Like that makes my cup feel so full
Mhm.
that then I don't have the same hole to fill, which I think, having worked with people in the space for so long, it's like this consumerism is almost always like trying to fill a hole that's emotional, emptiness, loneliness, feeling lost, feeling disconnected. And so if you focus on filling those things elsewhere and not by buying more stuff, then the desire for the more stuff kind of melts away.
Yeah, I found that to be true also. And I'm brought back to what you were talking about earlier with like the intentionality of what you want to be, that you want to be a present mom to your kids, that you want to be a good friend and a great wife and, help others. And so if we're looking at like those are the aspects of our identity, no one is saying, I want to be a fantastic consumer.
Right? Yes.
Like no one's
Yeah.
like, I just want to buy all the things on Amazon. Like that's the
Right.
part of my identity I
Mm.
really want to, highlight. And just remembering, okay, oh, this is who we say that we are, then how is our time reflective? Like I love the concept of, tell me your values and then show me your wallet, or tell me your
Yes.
values and then show me your calendar. So
Right.
just looking at, okay, how is the way that I'm spending my precious resources of money and time and energy,
Mhm.
how is that reflected in, what I'm actually doing? And does that align with what I say that I
Yes.
want? Because otherwise, no one is ever going to tell me, like, Emily, you should spend more time taking care of yourself, maybe my husband. But like the
Yeah.
messages are, you know, just always giving more of yourself, like buying more, doing more, 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 more. Those
Mhm.
messages, in my opinion, are not, they're still going to be the loudest. They're not going to be the voices that are changing. Like we need to find like-minded people, and reading Shira's book is a great place to start, but just being like, no, there's another way. Like there's another
Yes.
way that doesn't have to be constant consumption and filling those voids through that, which unfortunately is now compared. I think of my grandmother, like if she wanted something, what that looked like versus I want
Yes.
something and what that looks like.
It's
And
insane.
just in 2 generations, it's like I can get something in like 2 hours sent to my door. Whereas the friction of you have to go to the one store in town that might
Right.
have the thing and they
Yeah.
may not even have it.
Mhm.
We can tell ourselves we're filling the void like that. But we don't, right? There's
Yeah.
always more.
You know what's really helped me? It's very simple, is just making a list of things I want to spend money on. And which I think occurred to me because of that, like, show me your spending, I'll show you your values. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh no, like I'm spending a lot of money on jeans. And I would never say that jeans were my top value, right? And so I made a list of things I want to spend money on. And it included things like, physical fitness, like taking yoga classes, taking strength training classes, traveling. For me, going out to eat is like my greatest pleasure, and I hate cooking. So that's something I want to spend money on. And so having a list, like everyone's list will be so different. But having a list that feels aligned to you, I think, again, is just this way of like shifting your brain to be more intentional. So then when you do get out your credit card or you go to hit the button, it's like, wait, was this on my list of things I want to spend money on purpose?
Yeah.
Um, that really helped me. And it was so simple.
And what I love about your approach, and then also the book, and we're going to tell everyone where they can get it in just a minute, but just the practicality, like you have the mindset aspects and you have kind of the, let's think about this, let's ask ourselves some questions, but then you have the practical application that is something that we can do right away, which is great because the overwhelmed mom is like, I don't have time to do this. Like, I can't
Yes.
figure this out. But everyone can pull out a piece of paper, make a list for 5 minutes and then use that. So I love your approach. It's just so down to earth and so refreshing, which I really appreciate. And I was hoping you could tell us where everyone could get your newest book and your other books, and also how they can best connect with you.
Oh yeah, great. So my books are Minimalist, Organized Living, and the new one, Lifestyled. You can buy them anywhere books are sold. So I always advocate for supporting your small mom and pop indie bookstore, but it's available at all the big box stores online as well. And in terms of connecting with me through my website, which is just my name, shiragill.com, I have a free newsletter and community where I give really quick, actionable tips each week on how to streamline and simplify your life. And you can also find me on Instagram at Shira Gill, where I try to share calming images and things that inspire and that don't make you feel more pressure or overwhelm.
Definitely. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much, Shira. It's just been a joy talking to you. I just really appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you. I could talk to you all day. This was really fun.
Thank you. If you like today's podcast, here's what you can do. Just take 30 seconds to leave me a review. I know you're a busy mama. You're overwhelmed, in fact. But 30 seconds of your day makes such an impact. I'll be blessed by your words. They'll definitely make my day. And who knows, you might be entered for this month's giveaway. In Apple Podcasts, scroll down to write a review. Thanks so much for your time. I'm so grateful for you.